Thank you so much, Liane, for your generosity. All of this I did beside you, you know that. And I want to thank you and thank Patricia Moselli for the strong job she's doing. She has a strong will to put together the webinars. Thank her. Thanks to my colleagues from the BOT. Thanks for Nina, our more than perfect secretary. And to Janet Pino, our vice president in the IIBA, who is incredible in making things come. She'll make the new conference. Vita Heinrich Klauer, who is a fabulous teacher and our treasurer. Anat, Yael, Paula, Manuela, Jim, my colleagues from Brazil, Ana Lúcia and Marília Leite, that you don't hear, but you see a lot of her job because she's in charge of social media. My special thanks to this team that is here. Roberta, Alessia, all the translators, thank you so much for your big effort. My colleagues from the Instituto of São Paulo, I thank them all because they always supported me. And I hope they can understand the conference, the webinar. My husband, thank you. He teaches me a lot on PowerPoint tricks. With my beloved friend Claudia Kober, who made these slides get a beautiful appearance. And Kyle, my son, who gives me the images that will illustrate the work that I'll present today. If you are hearing me with some difficulties, it's because I get these sore throats. I got COVID, I'm sorry. I already interpreted me. We were 10 of us at the POT, 5 got COVID. Some with little problems, some with more different problems. Mine got here, of course. They interpret me already. And then I think I will pass to the presentation because I made a PowerPoint that makes more visual. The issue is not so easy, so I will try to make it more visual for you. Where is my button of shares? Yeah. Now, are you seeing my slide?
Yes.
We do perfectly well.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So, the thing that I was asked to bring to you is about the thing that I've been studying for so long, Liane said. And this my way to have this bioenergetic approach to compulsions and abuse consumption. I'll start with some history and theoretical frameworks, and probably we'll have time for a little experience. This is the agenda of this presentation that I hope we get through it. I'll start with an historical view with some mythology. Why mythology? Because I think, as Freud taught us, mythology helps us understand a lot about the world. I'll say something about the relational turn and the spectrum of narcissism, which are new developments in bioenergetics that brought much light into this problem. I will go into the past a little to bring Reich's view of the isolated superego, which is present in almost all difficulties we have, disturbances on consumptions, on compulsions. We'll say a little about the two paradigms that coexist in compulsions. We cannot leave it out. We cannot leave our oldest drive theories and stay only with a new paradigm. I'll try an experiential break with you, and we'll finish telling some case histories, but a new disclaimer, there is no silver bullet. It's a very hard job with very few successes, but we celebrate a lot when it happens. We celebrate a lot when some very deep problem of abuse gets solved by the person. Okay, so let's proceed to the next slide. Curiosity always moved humans toward experiences. If we search cultural expressions from the past, we will always find the use of something to mobilize the souls, either for fun, religiosity, or medicine. Either with substances, movements, postures, we always procured ways to deal with our inner world. Humanity always tried to connect with spirituality through rituals. Even nowadays, sacred rituals are helping treating, with or without the power of substances, some difficult drugs abuse. But what they really know that it's not the substance that has such power. The special force relies in the setting. And so, in our field of study, the most important person that I think is William Reich. He studied with Freud, and Freud had this profound interest in rituals and in myth. Jung, the psychoanalyst Jung, followed him. But it was William Reich, which was Lowen's therapist and mentor, that studied some tribes that lived in Trobriand Islands in the Pacific Ocean. He based his studies on the anthropologist Malinowski. Here is the picture of some of these people that he searched so much, and he interested so much on their rituals. And there he said, at that time, diseases and alcoholism, other compulsions, started to grow when these small communities started to get more in contact with capitalistic society that surrounded them. Before that, rituals were always for fun. They used to use all this food and beverage they accumulated. But when they started to communicate with the capitalist society outside, they started to accumulate the harvest, the food, and it changed a lot their communities. Everything changed there. Sexuality was free before. Afterwards, they started to put those youngs in very difficult positions for them to not marry outside their communities. for the harvest, the riches, would be maintained inside the community. That was the first very difficult thing Reich observed there, that they were in different positions, which we call matriarch or patriarch positions. They were in different ways in these islands. The islands more on the frontier, on the board, were much more on the patriarchal side. The islands inside that were no communication, not accumulation of goods, they were more on the matriarchal side. Well, this is something that made much difference on my passion for Reich. My other passions for him are because he was an artist. Here he is depicted doing a sculpture, very beautiful, that is on his house in Maine. Sometime before, in the beginning of psychoanalysis, Freud was the first to understand obsessions as a psychic phenomenon with a clear distinction between affect and its mental representative part. First went Pinel. Pinel wrote about the ruminative neurosis, the thinking neurosis he saw there. There weren't present still the obsessives. The term obsession first appeared in psychiatry in 1883. In 1905, Freud formulated the theory of drives. This is such ancient stuff. I'm a cancer person, so I love ancient stuff. But I think they help us to understand today. In 1908, Freud treated the rat man, the man who used to torture rats in a very complex mechanism to get rid of his feelings of rage, of discontent with his father. And in 1913, Freud first described the pregenital organization of libido. You see that is important because Reich wrote a lot about this beginning of our life. And he thought that those patients that had obsessions and compulsions came from the anal phase of the development of the libido. So some ideas about how Reich defined the obsessive compulsion. Thoughts follow well-defined pathways, but it compensates this with an above-average capacity of abstraction. They're very intelligent. They go to fields like mathematics, computers, physics. Well, some of these defenses fail sometimes, and the original impulse emerge. Which impulse? From the anal phase of the development of sexuality. So then we'll see lack of cleanliness, wasteful, or spending too much. We'll see also some sadistic, cold, and one unwielding rigidity. Ruminative thinking appears in childhood. In adulthood, the person compensates it in the form of ethical and aesthetical appeals. At work, productive capacity increases, but hinders spontaneity. We have a lot of persons that we can put into this category. Even we can see in there some traits in ourselves, which Reich thought was the etiology of obsessiveness. In the drive theory of Freud, in the drive paradigm, he said, there, at the dawn of psychoanalysis, parental education imposes a primitive and very rigid superego in the child. Ego, unable to process aggression and deal with this contradiction, stays there, but in a very difficult conflict between ego and superego in this system. Intrasystemic conflict between it and life and death impulses also. Thought then replaces actions until spontaneity disappears, revealing coldness. He was talking about the obsessive, but don't you see some traits in this person that is narcissistic? Yes, this was the dawn of psychoanalysis. They didn't say much about narcissism at that time. Compulsions, abuses, and consumerism nowadays, they are difficult to treat. They are not always admitted as the motive of the consultation. Sometimes shame and guilt presented to appear in the first sessions. Even longer it takes for them to confess some abuse. They promote isolation. They confuse patients and therapists with their displacements. And worst of all, they make brain changes. We are living through compulsive times that encourage all kinds of consumptions. And why I'm putting them together? Because we know that these persons that in the beginning can prove to be indecision, doubt, distrust, certain reserve, it appears in blocking the transference. It is very connected to compulsions, abuses, and consumerism nowadays. Sometimes it started as the old compulsive personality that Reich studied. That's why we have to turn back to him to understand them. So, the modern man living in capitalistic society has been impoverished of rituals. They are prone to use a lot of different substances and or actions also as a resource. A resource for what? As a resource to deal with the difficulties of the reality. So, compulsions come sometimes beginning by fun. This use that is even in celebrations, a good use in rituals, started to become a resource. see the rituals going out and the person drinking alone. Before that, they were helpful, but they weren't needed. As they become a resource, they are needed. They become a habit. And then they turn into a vice. Lowe has his view of dependencies. He says, there is this feeling of emptiness. There is this excesses of abuses or substances or behaviors. There is this lack of grounding. There is this lack of aggressiveness. There is this lack of connection. That is what states depression on this organism. Lowen said that the escapist tendencies are very strong in our society. The widespread use of drugs and alcohol, especially among young people, is evidence of this. I believe that young people turn to drugs because they cannot cope with or this overstimulation, all this overstimulation to which they are subjected. Drugs and alcohol provide a way to escape an intolerable situation. Lowe also said something interesting about seeing people in those hotels, those all-inclusive hotels that seems the paradise for holiday. He said, this kind of life were so unrealistic. This good life they show, it's much more an appearance than real joy. He said that despite some children that he saw playing in the pool with real joy, not even an adult displayed that feeling. On the contrary, he saw very, very lack of life on these subjects. What we can say, the protagonist isn't there, the subject, it's someone else. The emphasis is in having or seeming, taking pictures for the Instagram, instead of being there. Lowen said that, pay attention, he said that in 1983. And look at those. Before we can hear a suffering, we need to recognize it. We have to recognize drugs and alcohol abuse, food abuse, internet abuse, other eating disorders, hoarding, shopping, sexual compulsion. Even this strong man here we call it vigorexia, would be strengthanexia to cope, to deal with anorexia. All of these, we can call them protheses to deal with reality. Resources people are having to build in compulsive. We must recognize that in all these cases, the mind is at the center all the time. Here I bring to you another myth. A first myth that was brought to us by Kraepelin before Freud. he used to call the individuals with the obsessive compulsive personality, they call them anancastic personality, because of this figure here that I brought to you. This is Ananke, goddess of necessity, strongest will. She was the mother of the fates and the personification of destiny, fate and inexorability. As if pressed by imperious needs, the obsessive individuals attempt to control their destiny. This first alluded to the repetitive nature of certain psychic process. It's where Freud brought us the compulsion to repeat in his very important work about repetition, elaboration, that he wrote in 1983. So, Freud also used the Greek mythology as an inspiration to name many mental health problems. Here we are with Eros and Ananke, opposite forces. The joyful Eros, god of love and desire, representative of the libido, the great force that Freud introduces us to, understanding that we were much more than our rational minds. Eros and Ananke became the parents of human civilization. The anancastic personality at the very beginning, and Eros. And I will say the bright and the dark sides of the force. Eros pushes you toward the other, and Ananke does the opposite. We'll say that our modern society tries to avoid any pain. So love is being depleted with this part. Love lacks transgression, transcendency in our compulsive times. That tends to prevail when we find personalities organized on thinking and doing too much. Idealizing rationality is most valued in our societies, most on the eastward. Sensations, feelings, intuitions, the act of hearing, playing, and dreaming. Those are abilities that we are losing. I'm sad to say that. Our society doesn't value them. Here I bring you the origin of the cosmos, the primordial egg. What an interesting idea we have when we understand that Ananke and Kronos were children from Gaia. Gaia is the goddess of the earth. She represents our planet. That is the earth, and Hydros, the water, and our globe. And Gaia had two children, Ananke and also Chronos, the god of the time, but the time machine, the time that has no stop and is continuously eating the human souls. Okay, but it's not just bad things. We have to see it with a good eye. Chaos, always, I wrote it in Portuguese, I'm sorry. It is the force that is always trying to hit Earth. But now there is the serpent that represents transformation, that represents medicine, cure of the earth. We need it so much. Not as a coincidence, but I just noticed now. That's why I put it here in the right side of your slide. Our symbol, the symbol of bioenergetics, it's inside the egg, the representative of life. And it depicts this side that is like this, depicts our, the star where we belong, the Via Láctea, the pool of stars that surround us. Earth is a small planet in this structure. I find it very beautiful, and Reich also, and he studied that in his books, mostly on his last books about the origin of the energy and the cosmos. So let's proceed. When we proceed, we will find the moment we are living that we called in bioenergetics the relational turn and the spectrum of narcissism. Our understanding of the stages of development have changed. We are having now a much more broad understanding, and that is due to many researchers that have been looking at the development of the child with a very big lens. Lowen proposed the spectrum of narcissism inside this new paradigm in psychoanalysis. In the beginning, that was it. Everybody that was trained once saw the timeline that we have from birth to around 4 years old, the Oedipus phase, and all the phases we passed through until we built Oedipus complex. And we start to form our armor. We used this name at that time. It was named by Reich during the First World War. So this timeline have progressed because these lenses were augmented and understood initial phases of development. In utero, oral phase, all the relationship with the baby, with the mother or caregiver or father in the very beginning of their lives. They paid so much attention and they found many of the conflicts we name on the Oedipus phase, they were begun there in the relational, first relationship with the baby with the world. And that is where the primitive traumas are more, and that is where our defenses, or more important defenses, stayed. So now we can say that after this change, we are not paying so much attention to Oedipus myth. We are now paying attention to another myth. We'll say that Narcissus myth substituted Oedipus myth in our society. At pre-industrial times, we had the narcissist already. The concept of narcissist defense manifests in different forms of narcissism. There is where we find image replacing feelings, thinking and acting becoming defenses against feeling, thinking serving as a defense to avoid having to act, and acting to alleviate obsessive thoughts. The body is an empty shell. It becomes a voracious machine, patterns, habits, repetition, seeking to hide its existential emptiness. The concept of armor has changed, evolved into the tonic envelope, which I'm so grateful to Gitonella that brought it to us from his very important studies about Daniel Stern and Didier Anzieux, Skin Ego. I'll mention that. I would say that the body starts to begin as a machine. The body as image is conducting us to the cyborg and be our reality. I'm afraid so, but we have to differentiate two narcissistic disorders because they are very difficult to treat, and they are very different. Those caused by a persistent, well-constituted narcissism, and those that are consequences of a badly constituted narcissism. Isn't it interesting? A teacher of us, Hector Fiorini, used to say, we passed half of our lives growing up and developing some narcissism to be able to be in the world. Then we fall in love. Then we find someone. And then we get into a relationship. And then we have to deconstruct all this narcissism to have to become more like we were in the beginning, less tightened, less afraid, less close. So here are two pictures as examples that art always says those things better than us. Here, the narcissistic building in a very, very small ground. It falls apart. And here, all these protests, all these sticks to help stay on his feet. This person with many, many drawers where probably she hides her feelings, her fears. her humanity. Even in early Egypt, they felt the need for balance in their life. So I bring you a more positive myth, a goddess, an Egyptian goddess. Her name is Maat. She is the Egyptian goddess of the right measure, justice, and lightness. Feather is her symbol. Goddess Maat brings us a very good counteraction against anarchy. Human beings always seek for what is right or just. They want to recover the well-balanced way of life. This goddess is missing when we talk about addictions and compulsions. Says Freud that the original beings always felt that they were descendants of gods. That's why I brought so many gods for you to try to understand. Just such difficult disease. Here we see Maat contrasting anarchy. And I will say, how broad a concept can be. We are talking about compulsions, abuses. We will always find on those characters mild or strong lack of structure. They most of the time will depict some borderline condition. We don't speak so much about borderline character because it's so different. It doesn't have a steady form. It's more a condition than a steady form of character. There we find impulsive traits, narcissistic traits, and bipolar traits. And of course, obsessive compulsive disorders. When those conditions progresses, we can see even stronger dissociative traits that could be named impulsive compulsive personalities. This is one of our, I forgot to mention that I should have mentioned before. I'm part of a group, very important group of studies of compulsions, and there, Mara Cerroni, that will be with you on the next webinar. Let me stop changing a little, just to say a few words. Mara Cerroni, Priscilla Leitner, Lisette Parlac, they are part of my group of study on compulsions. And together we understood that compulsive personalities have always an impulsive way of doing things. So we think, and we proposed that, and we wrote an article together, where we proposed that we call them impulsive compulsive personalities. This feather was a gift from a patient that could cure a very intense case of bulimia. There weren't so many, so I celebrate, I cherish everyone. Let's go to share screen again. Okay. how broad a concept can be. If it is too broad, it doesn't help us much. So, we learn in psychoanalysis, it makes a lot of sense. We learn on Lowen and makes much even. Lowen said, obsessions are hang-ups. To be obsessed is to be caught in a paralyzing emotional conflict. Obsessions are defenses against depression, and at the bodily level, it manifests as a decreased contact of the feet with the ground. His picture is from Dali, but his beautiful drawing is from Lowen in his book, Bioenergetics. It's common knowledge that when we say obsessions, we are talking about the thinking process. And when we say compulsions, we are talking about the acting process. Okay? But anyway, objects of attachments, fetishes. I'm surrounded with good luck charms here today. Those, even for the people that are not really obsessive, are ways to put in material something that we have in our mind. In pathological mourning, we see a lot of that. How difficult it is for some people to let go, to give up, to cling on things that belong to the deceased person. It's very difficult. It seems that we are living memories with those material things. So I bring to you one more beautiful slide of all. It depicts Shiva, the god of spirituality. He is with his feet and in the lap of Dara, the goddess of the earth. This is rooted spirituality. And Lowen said, we humans are like trees. The height to which we grow depends on the strength of our roots. Pull a tree or a person from its ground, and their spirituality becomes a lifeless abstraction. I have to say to you that my patients are my passions too. My passions are art, literature, psychotherapy, of course, and movement. I started bioenergetic analysis very early, at the 70s. I'll stop share for a moment, just to say that. I was studying and teaching William Reich at the university at that time. I was struck by Reich's social awareness. It's from him a phrase that I am not tired to repeat. I said it a lot. He used to say, every society creates the characterological types it needs to maintain itself. So now we get why obsessive compulsive. Meeting Lowen once and questioning him about why he didn't pay so much attention to the compulsive, obsessive form of character, he answered me, "It is because it is spread all over the other characters." At that time, I didn't understand. But now I have to recognize his profound vision. And I owe him this. Where is my share screen? Share screen. I owe him this beauty. Thank you, Hai. Thank you, Loe. And so we proceed. My voice is better. Grounding is the key concept of bioenergetics. Grounding is being in contact with the ground you walk on, both physically and metaphorically, being touch with reality. It is the opposite of being up in the air, obsessed, or hanging in some other situation. Lowen defined that in 1982, and as you can see, obsession is part of the defining of grounding. Grounding relies on three elements. Odila Weigand of our institute teaches a lot of this. Body, legs and feet, spine, breathing, intersubjectivity, our relational field, and territoriality. Where do we are? Where do we stand? So, this is the most important contribution of Lowen, I guess. And he mentions obsession in his definition, which is very, very interesting. Now, let's pay attention a little to the points of view of or paradigms in psychoanalysis, because we in bioenergetic follow them. Drive theory, Freudian, Reichian, all of that of the development of the sexuality of the child that I've been talking to you was a first paradigm, and evolved another paradigm, very important, object relations paradigm. Melanie Klein, English school, her followers, for example, Winnicott, adored by most of us. But I cannot let's mention subjectivity paradigm that was brought by Lacan in France. There was very important contributions from very important studiosos, persons that studied a lot. One of them was Olivenstein. Olivenstein created a clinic surrounding Paris, in the surroundings of Paris. It's called Marmottan. There he talks about the broken mirror face of the child. That's where he poses the conflict of development of the people, the drug addicted that he treats in this clinic. And we can also mention Didier Anzier with his very important concept of skin ego that was brought to our bioenergetic by Gitonella brilliantly when he defines borderlines. So, drive theory evolved into relational. Drives and their repression is less important now. Early traumas are more important now. Attachment, more important there. Increases importance of transferences, process in psychotherapy. This is a big turn. The theories of attachment, the theory of early trauma, all the new kinds of therapies that come from this turn of paradigms. But I have to turn to the drive theory, because there was what we found very interesting to understand our impulsive, compulsive personalities. That's where we find Reich's view of the isolated superego. Reich wrote about the impulsive character and how parental education can lead to flaws in the ego and superego. The superego and ego formations of the child get disturbed. Although we are prone to release the drive theory and the old Oedipus paradigm, the old formation of superego, they can be of value to understand our impulsive, compulsive characters. There is why. Even neuroscience understood that. Reich's theory about the ego of the impulsive patients relates their ambivalence and lack of control to a disorganized parenthood that leads to the formation of an isolated superego. At brain level, we see that the compulsive, abusive of substances and things have much less expression on the prefrontal lobes than in the limbic reptilian brain. Okay, if you see images, I don't have them to show to you, but if you see images of people that are in consumption of substances and afterwards, they have this difference in their brains either. What is it that is organized parenthood? Reich thought in the frame of the Oedipus paradigm. He said, drive gratification without parental guidance will lead to form an impulsive character. What is this? This is when wrong behavior occurs to the child, parents weren't there, so the wrong behavior go unnoticed. Or sometimes even worse. Afterwards, when parents noted something, they came and give a delayed and brutal punishment. The child cannot integrate this as lesson. So they will get this punishment, but they will not be able to use it as a lecture. That is what Wright used to say, inconsistency of educational patterns. It tends to form a superego structure that he calls an isolated superego. It's not good for sterile use. It doesn't help you to prevent to do. It doesn't help you. It doesn't prevent you to do abominable things and leads to an impulsive. So, impulsiveness, compulsions, and violence are those. All of them fruits of the isolated superego. The structure responsible for moral behavior has a malfunction. The internal moral judge, superego, cannot help to inhibit antisocial or psychopathic behaviors. This impacts strongly in our very known spectrum of narcissism. Let me say one more thing that I was almost forgetting. The further one advances into this spectrum, coming from the rigid structure, narcissist, borderline, psychopath, paranoid, or compulsives here. The further one advances, the more primary the responses given. William Reich, in his early writings, proposed this impulsive character because of this inconsistency. This dissociation that when we go into that direction is responsible even for the behavior of some serial killers or some individuals, some youngsters that have been doing massive violent shootings at schools and places. Those are disorders that display severe cases of compulsions. And now we went to the skin ego and the tonic envelope by Guido Bella. He helped us much. He realizes. I asked him for a paper that was not yet published. He sent it to me because it's very useful to our treatment of the impulsive personalities. The skin ego. These adolescents or these children that will become adolescent will be not very well protected from this parenthood and have been neglected in so many ways. Most of the time they will develop a weaker, frail armor that cannot prevent stimuli to get in or impulses to get out. That structure of defense, we will name it the thorn envelope that has stretched so much or it is not working. The contents are going out. The stimulation are coming in without a filter. This is another picture just to give some more art some beauty into such a difficult matter. This is Jazz by Matisse. But to me, it's a sparkles that are, coming out from this very frail, this very not contentive structure. To deal with those anxieties, the impulsive compulsive patients builds primary defenses. You know them all: split, fragmentation, ego and object, denial, projection, complete or partial, introjection, complete or partial, projective identification, complete or partial, seclusion, insulation. Well, all of them present in our compulsive society. Fearing being replaced by machines, subjects tend to become unhuman with ourselves and with others. This is a phrase from Byung-Chul Han, a Korean philosopher of our days. How to mend, how to patch the tonic envelope? We have answers, some answers. Resisting the limbic capitalism, the new, very bad era of accumulation. We can say also that pathologies like compulsions, anorexia, orthorexia are like practices for dealing with this difficult reality, not another one. Living in compulsive times and trying to preserve the human within us. That's our duty. That is why we have to continue searching, researching. So the two paradigms coexist to explain compulsions: drive theory and the formation of superego, and the relational field. Joyce McDougall has a very interesting view of addictive personality that merges drive theory and relational paradigm. She said, despite the addict often feeling enslaved either to alcohol, to food, to drugs, to computers, to the cell phone, by sex, addiction to other people, the object of addiction is experienced as essentially good, often felt as giving meaning to the individual life. This Australian researcher, Joyce McDougall, made a point. She said, when the first period with mother-baby, if it lasts beyond necessary, this fusional unit, it affects the development of transitional phenomena and instills in the baby a fear of developing its own psychic resources to cope with tension, with fear, with loneliness. This is a very interesting point. I'll stop sharing. because nowadays we always think about lack of contact with the mother with the baby, father with the baby. It was lacking in some degree. So that is why we have so many compulsive and impulsive and other diseases in our society. But she's bringing a very new perspective. She says, this mother that cannot let that baby grow, cannot let that baby find its own resources to cope with tension, fear, loneliness. He doesn't have even time to fantasize sometimes. The mother is not there to be perfect, to be complete. Nothing can be missed. The baby cannot give a step without her. This kind of mother is very difficult because she is dependent. She has a dependent personality. Thus, it creates an addictive relationship with the baby. The baby with her presence, her caregiving functions. Can be the father also. The father can be the caregiver. And this will happen if he doesn't, she or he doesn't help the child to grow. Because they are in this position of feeling themselves dependent on the little baby. In these cases we are describing, the baby is enabled to establish inside himself a figure that he would call caring. The representation he can make of the goodwill, of the good moments that he can have. He cannot do this because he is always being with the mother, with the father, with the lap. He cannot understand what it is to make this representation of a caring figure on his mind. I have to tell you a story now, a story that Freud tells us in his important work. He once was to pick up a seamstress that worked for him and his wife. He went to the house of the woman to pick her up in his chariot, and he saw her with the little baby on the crib. The baby was already almost talking. He was there, he was on his feet, and he was playing with a spool of thread. What the baby did with the spool of thread? The mother immediately put the thread on the crib and said, now we can go. And the Freud asked why. She said, look at him. The baby got the spool and threw it from the crib. And through the line, he got it back. What this baby was doing, this baby was representing with this transitional object the recovering of his mother that was going to be away. This was his most adored toy, said the mother. And we understood how so important it is for the baby to develop his transitional objects on his mind. So let's get to the sharing again. Okay. So we come to uninternalized maternal function. Maternal, paternal. Caregivers. The child has the first grounding in the uterus. Secondly, it meets the lack of father and mother and caregiver. This forms primary narcissism, which is very important to keep them alive. We know that for sure. If caregivers fail or are not constant or consistent, the baby feels this incongruency as a discontinuity and as a threat. But also unable to establish an internal representation of the figure, mother or father, he will not able to contain and to deal with psychological pain or states of hyperexcitation. The place where the small ego is setting gets empty. He will feel the void. This symbiosis, when it breaks up, the person falls into the emptiness, the terrible, hostile, empty space, there where the unthinkable anxieties dwell. Winnicott understood the importance of primary experiences. And we turn to Winnicott to understand uninternalized maternal function. Drugs, foods, games took the place of the transactional objects of childhood that embodied the maternal, the caregiver environment for the child. That's why we don't call them transactional, but call them transients, because they are not, they are just temporary. The relief is not real, for real. It's temporary. Here, I put a picture of Banksy. Banksy is an art of the streets painter. He is a graffiti artist. And he painted this child with a very sad look at its eyes. But he said a very nice thing about this child playing. He said he abandoned the old heroes, old masculine figures, heroes. Now the hero is the caregiver, and it is a woman. I found it very, very interesting for us women that deal a lot with caring and caregiving and curing and procuring the well-being of everyone. So, I want to propose to you an experiential break. I'll stop share for a moment. And I think I have time. How much time do I have, Alessia? And can you say to me?
10 minutes or 50 minutes.
10 minutes only?
Or we have 30 minutes to the end,
To
but
the end.
20 minutes
Good,
a
good.
question. So
20 about questions. Okay, I'll do a very small exercise. I will not, I was about to show you how to wrap up a client for him to or her to feel it better, but it is not possible because we have to have questions. So I want you to do this very little exercise. Just have your hands on a table or some place that is comfortable. With your two hands, try to hold your face for a moment. Try to close your eyes and to hold your face for a moment. Let's feel the weight of the face into the palms of the hands. Let's feel the touch, but mostly rely your weight to your hands and see how it helps to relax your face. The intention is very important in this exercise. As you relax your face, you feel that you need to change the way your hands are holding it. That's very important because this is the way that we really relax. We have to have this intention, this internal caretaking figure that help us just say, okay, I give up. I let my face drop. I let my head drop. Stay for a few moments if you like. It's just a demonstration. I cannot say much about how are you doing that, but I rely on your own internal caregivers. Okay, so let me move on for a little more because we have some more slides, not too many. I got rid of my board. Oh, that's it. I told you that I would say some case histories, and because there is no silver bullet, and we cannot be successful all the time. I was forgetting to say a very important thing when I gain that beautiful work of wood. The patient of mine had a very difficult compulsion. He had bulimia, had already been to many people that treat voices because her throat was all scratched already. And she had very episodes per day. She only started therapy and she got more episodes because she said she was there because of her mother. She wasn't there because of her. So I noticed that I couldn't do this job alone. I had to work on a team. And that is what I recommend to you all that have a patient with a compulsion, either alcohol or drugs. We never work alone. It's very good to have someone to share. And in this case, it was the therapist of the family. The therapist of the family went there with very careful touch. And I and her, we discussed together many times until this client, step by step, was able to rebuild some confidence in herself, some confidence in her body. And she was less and less ashamed of her figure and was less and less with the fear of food. And then she started to get more in contact with her mother, which is very interesting. The mother figure was what she always threw up. She was throwing up her mother. And then I say that there is silver bullet. We have to work on teams always, not alone, because there are, most of the time, they are not able to maintain this behavior, and they fail. And when they fail, they go into a deep depression, and we have to be there to prevent them to lose everything and to show them that that's not easy, that will be a step-by-step process. Many therapists treat drug abuse, and all of them pay attention to these steps. We don't always do it once, and it's not always conclusive. That is why I understand the saying of the AAA when they say, I am clean, but I am an addict. I am an addict. And I say, 1 year, 2 months, 1 day clean. They start all their programs doing that statement. I am clean for today. And this is because it is very difficult. And we have to be very careful to be there and to be present for those people. I'll show you 2 testimonials, phrases that they say. A boy that used to play in games in his cellular. I would play, forget to eat, forget to take a shower, Sometimes I will get up from the chair, take a drink of water, and sit back down automatically. I live it like a zombie. And the other one, 23 years old, a woman, the drug caught me very early. The drug took me in its arms. I was educated by the drug. I grew up with it. I have to stay in treatment, taking my medication, because in my opinion, compulsion migrates. And that's the other thing that I wanted to say to you. That is very easy to have a migration, to have a transference of the compulsion, of the object of the compulsion to another. Let's say, for an example, when a person with a compulsion for food gets a treatment with a surgery only, it's not good, because she will start to drink and drink more and more. And she has the risk of becoming an alcoholist, which she wasn't in the beginning. She was a compulsive personality, but she haven't had alcoholism before. So compulsions migrate.
Léia, do we have
Oi, querida.
more or less 5 minutes?
Okay.
Because you
Do
have
you...
questions.
Good, good. Tell me.
You want to finish before?
I will just give this for the finishing. The part that I skipped is not very important, but this is important. It's another work of art of Banksy. I went into a Banksy museum in Lisbon and got those pictures there. Fearing replacement by machines, individuals tend to become unhumans toward themselves and the other. And that depicts our instinctual self escaping from the capitalistic society. Okay. Give me the questions, Leonie, please. I can see you.
Yeah, okay. Congratulations, Léia. Very good.
Thank you, Leonie.
Lots of people want to have your slides. Then I don't know, you speak with Alessia after. Yeah?
Okay, I can give them.
So
They're
first,
public.
it's possible to deeply define the eventual difference between the ananke of necessity and the common need of life in its genuine form. That's the first.
Wow, it's a very big question and very good one. Yes, when we say the common life, we are supposing a person that is already living well in a city, in a comfortable way. When we say ananke, we are not thinking about a good life. We're thinking about persons that are very disturbed by all these themes of compulsions and consumerism. There and their relatives, because this is a disease that hits all of them that are around the person that is suffering. Yeah, that's a very big suffering. So that's why I brought Ananke. It's not a common life problem. It's a very big soul problem.
So we have lots of questions. any physical common localization of Ananke?
Ah, where would I put an anke? In the mind, I guess. Like Atenas, who was in the mind of the father of gods. I will put her in the mind.
So, could you please teach this exercise to comfort, like the exercise you did to a client?
I do that all the time. I made them feel the comfort of the chair. I made them feel supported by the chair before I touch them, because sometimes touch is too strong for those personalities. You have to be aware and stay very, very, very quiet and containing and supportive for that person to feel itself, feel itself.
So, here, if the family absolutely does not want to go to psychotherapy, how do you proceed?
Sometimes I make believe. I use my objects of transition also, transactional objects in my room. I made a mother with pillows. I made a father. I made a situation where we can play and where we can live really in real life the feelings that are there to be expressed.
Another one? What was done with the bulimic patients in terms of body work? With the bulimic.
Of the bulimic, of course. I had her with very, very careful exercises. First of all, I had her paint her contour on a big piece of paper on my office. I put a paper on the floor and made her try to depict her figure, how she imagined herself. After she did that, I had her lie down, and then I contoured her. And then we went to look at these differences, and I invited her to fill the blanks. It was very interesting. Was one of the exercises that I did there.
Now it's one question that you like it. What is your opinion on psychedelics, specifically ayahuasca, in helping with addictions?
Thank you. I have my opinions, yes. I think some will have a very good experience, but the most important is not the substance. You know, ayahuasca is practiced in a very special settings. Sometimes they are not religions, they are made by therapists, but they are comfortable. There is music, there is companionship from the beginning to the end of the process. Sometimes there is food also by the end. Everything to make the person comfortable, to go inside and have an understanding. So these understandings brings a lot of light sometimes into the compulsion thing. And some people bring it to the therapy. It's very interesting when they go. But the most important thing they're doing there is not taking the substance. Although the substance is powerful, but the most important thing that will connect them is this setting.
So another one.
Good.
We still have 15 times. Lots of people saying thank you very much. Very good webinar. They are congratulating you. And we have another one from Edith Lieberman. What attachment style do you identify in these impulsive, compulsive passions?
Oh, the worst kind. The attachment that doesn't permit evolvement. It doesn't make the child able to get this internal object whole, complete. There are 3 forms of attachment. I miss the words now, but the attachment that when the person looks back, the mother isn't there. There is punishment instead of guidance, of protections.
I think the question was this, Léia, but lots of people congratulations you and say that you were very clear. Thank you very much for this webinar. They like it very much. Lots of people here. So
That's wonderful.
I think it was very interesting. So congratulations. And you answer all the questions already. Yeah.
That's good. Good for us.
Yeah.
Diana, I tried
We
to
did it.
send you some question translated
Oh, I didn't see it. Where?
in WhatsApp.
I'm sorry. And Edith say gracias and disorganized, like
Disorganized.
yeah,
Yes, that's the name of the attachment.
yeah,
The
yeah.
disorganized kind.
Let me see what's happening in WhatsApp here. Reflecting on the lack of development of a toned ego, can tattoos be part of a form of compulsion, even in body modification?
That's the best question, not the ayahuasca. Ayahuasca was the easiest. You know, I'm very fond of tattoos. I've never did one, but I noticed that the person get a tattoo to be seen by itself. Sometimes, I missed a picture that should I get back a little bit, just a moment to my picture? No, I can't. Oh, no, I can't. Let's go there for just a moment, because I think it is important, Leonie.
But you still have one question.
I will answer. Sorry, because I want to show this, this picture here, I didn't talk about it. This transparent person that lives in this state of our society, that it's not just the age of liquid capitalism. It is the fogginess. We are losing contour. We are all losing contour. We are like this man. He's like he was, atropelado, hidden by a car, and
Yeah, yeah.
he's in,
Smash.
smashed in the soil. So tattoos for some adolescents are ways to distinguish themselves from this fogginess, to have a mark and to be able to see itself. Sometimes they do it in the most difficult way when they cut themselves, because they need the suffer and the pain also to have this contact with body reality. But the marks are important. They hide the marks or they show the marks. There is all the importance of tattoo in this delicate work of us.
And the last question, maybe, do you use, and which cases, mindfulness and conscious breathing exercise?
I do, because they were invented by Reich. They haven't had that name before. I'm sorry, but it's true. And Lowe emphasized this, making it possible through many things that he built. He built a stool. We do, and we use it in a very appropriate way sometimes with these clients seated on the ground. We work on positions with them that they feel comfortable and cautious.
That's true.
Mindful is our area. Is it with a new name? It's like, it's just interesting. In cognitive therapy, they do a lot of exercises and they say they made them. But if you look at them, they're all Reich or Lowen exercises, modified. That is why I fight for our space as bioenergetic therapists in treating compulsions, drug abuse. Don't let it to the hands only of these behavior therapists. We know to do that in a very much more subtle way, I believe. Not they do nothing wrong, they are wonderful, but we have our tricks.
So, Léia, I think the questions finished. And I want to congratulate you. Beautiful presentation. It was really, I was here the whole time with you.
Thank you.
And most of the people saying, thank you, so important, you work. So congratulations. That's say
Thank
that
you,
you are
Léa.
very clear when you expose your ideas.
50 years of being for being teacher helps a lot.
And the teaching compulsion also is a long years, huh? Long.
They say when
Yeah.
someone doesn't know an issue, goes to teach it. I always wanted to teach compulsion because I didn't know about that. I'm a compulsive.
Very, very beautiful.
Thank you so much, Liane. Thank you, everybody that is here.
Yeah,
It
lots
was
of
a pleasure. It was a
clap.
pleasure to be with you. With this voice.
Very nice. Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Léia. It was a pleasure to have you and to listen to you.
Thank you,
you.
Alessia.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all colleagues and all the interpreters. So we have at the end. I don't know if you want to say anything else.
I do. I want to thank you very much. I feel the atmosphere contagious me from the very beginning. You were there and you were having some problems, but you dealt with them wonderfully. Got my confidence that I will be very well translated in so many languages. It's an honor to me. Imagine having been translated in so many languages. Thank you so much for all of you. Thank you, Liane, for being with me all the time. I felt you there.
Love you.
And thank you all.
Thank you, Liane. Thank you, Leia. So see you all at the next webinar in the IIBA cycle.
Of course, we'll be here at the audience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening to all.
It is my friend from Brazil in the study group of compulsions. She will be the next.
Mara, yeah.
Eh?
The
She'll
next
be
is
the next.
it's Mara. Yeah, I'll be here.
Mara,
I
she's
will.
wonderful.
Yeah, she is.
So thank you and good evening and see you soon.
Thank you, Alexia. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye,
Tchau,
Leia.
Liane querida.
Bye, bye, everybody. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Leia.
I did it.
You are the best.
Don't say that.
Bye.
Oh, many saying things.